Hi, Lianne Bridges here with Sharon Cohen, and we wanted just to share a little bit with you from yesterday. We did a women's circle. Sharon and I have regular meetings with women called Magical Soul Adventures. We do retreats, events, online workshops, and gatherings to really help women shine their light, to help them to transform, transmute fear, to live their healthiest life, to live their wealthiest life in terms of abundance and joy. And so the women's circle was really, we all felt amazing afterwards and thought it would be really great to share some of this. And the topic was about rising above the chaos. And after, we're new into the year of 2021, there's been already a lot of chaos going, a lot of people feeling unbalanced. That was the word that we kept hearing from them. I don't feel balanced. In chaos, it's hard to feel balanced. So we thought it would be great to share some of the topics, the things that we talked about with the ladies to help you as well in this time of chaos, unbalance. So maybe Sharon, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. So my name is Sharon Cohen, and I've been a holistic naturopath for over 25 years, supporting women to feel healthy, energized, vital, to live the life that they dream of and that they're passionate about. And Lianne and I teamed up many years ago to create very exciting and what would you call it, magical soul adventure retreats in Costa Rica, where women could come together and truly get in touch with the deeper truth of who they are and share it and support other women as well. It's beautiful. And we've done workshops and many things. So who I am is am really excited about supporting women. They seem to be the hub of the home. And when the women are doing well, everybody else flourishes, right? And so I help women address some of their challenges and overcome them.
Excellent. That's great. And for those of you who don't know me, I help people in moving and transforming their career into possibly a business or in their leadership so that they're more effective, but using really more conscious methods, self-leadership, tapping into greater wisdom. So, if you will, Sharon's got kind of the health and wellness. I've got kind of business and career, but together we're all soul. It's all about that deeper soul within to manifest great health and great wealth and passion and purpose. So we're going to start today. Sharon's going to talk, I think, a little bit about what's going on with this chaos and how to rise a little bit above it in terms of the health and wellness. Maybe you could start that off. And I think you said maybe how to define health, and I'll talk a little bit about how to define wealth. So it's not the standard way you might be thinking. So stay tuned.
So let's talk a little bit. We'll start with the phrase that I posted on Facebook this week that I really love: observe, don't absorb, right? And there's so much going on now. Excuse me. Whoops. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, where did you go here?
Observe versus absorb.
Yeah, I can't see you anymore, but okay. So observe, don't absorb. And so what does that mean? It means there is a lot happening out there. And the out there is a reflection of in here, right? So if there's chaos out there, it's a reflection also of the chaos in here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In here. And so what I'm saying is that can we watch it like a movie? Can we watch what is happening, and not necessarily the news? I highly recommend we turn off the news now because it's very addictive and designed to pull us back into that one truth, right? And true health is to stay open to all truths, to stay open to all possibilities. And so when we start absorbing all the different energies, then it can be noticed, or I notice for myself, that my energy in my body my vital force starts to dim down. And that's not really something that we need now. I think it's important to stay healthy and well with what's happening now. And so can we stay so detached? And what does that mean? So everywhere, what is suffering? Everywhere that we have attachments, that we have ideas of how things we should be, of things that are, but we don't think they should be that way. That's where suffering comes in. And it's important to look at our attachments to the things that we think should be a different way. And when we could look at our attachments and step back a little bit and relax a little bit and not absorb it or take it everything at face value, right? The body can open and relax, and we could feel healthier.
Can I interject here? I think that is so beautifully
Yeah.
said. And so what some people will be saying, okay, and I struggle with this sometimes too, is that so detach, that helps us, it helps us feel better in the moment. And our body is our guidance system, right? If we're feeling angry, angst, pains, it means there's something that's not quite in alignment that needs to be cleared.
Yes.
And then we'll say, okay, so you're doing that, you're doing it for yourself, but what if you want to affect change? How do you affect change if you stay completely detached? And I don't know if you want to take that on, or I can take that on, but I think that's an important thing. Okay, so because I think that there's this belief, there's this kind of, well, if you do that, you're spiritually bypassing. You're bypassing what's really going on there. You're not really digging into it. So I think there's this kind of paradox or this balance that needs to take place where we can, and it's not easy, but I think it's part of our evolution and growth, is that we can stay detached, look at what's going on, observe when we're being triggered, notice our responsibility in that trigger. What does that mean? I'm being triggered because the next, lockdown happens, the curfew happens. What is that a trigger in me? That is my fear, anger around oppression. So can I start to work on that? And then the other part of Lianne says, yeah, but we don't want to have that. And we don't want that to continue and so forth. Oh, I have to go again, detach, look at, there's fear there. I'm not in the now because that's not how it is. And I can live my life. I'm in the future, or I'm looking at the past or what's happened in the past, right? And so again, it's the observing, and then to be, what is being inspired through me to act or to be or to hold the light for. And for example, what we get inspired to is holding circles for women, doing something like this where we can help uplift, help people, not rescue them, but be that beacon of light to attract, for them to be able to raise their own vibration, hold the space for them when they're in fear and suffering and so forth, rather than the rescue type. So there's this real kind of balancing act that we have to do, be detached, but also be in the drama, if you will, to an extent that is a detached way, but really in helping and in service that's aligned with who we are. What is best for us? Not everyone are rescuers. Not everyone is, firefighters. Some people are there to rebuild afterwards. Some people are there to heal, to help, whatever, to create art and music to soothe the soul in this process. And it's really to be detached, but also to recognize when you're inspired in your unique way to be of service at this time.
Beautiful.
That's a good way.
Beautiful. Yes, and I'd like to address, like, when you were talking about living in the past and living in the future. So not being here now, in the here and now, which is where life happens, in the here and now, right? The only truth is this moment. And so let's talk about, if we're living in the past, or we're living in the future, let's say a lot of living in the future has to do with the what ifs, right? So we talked a little bit in the women's circle, we were asking women yesterday, about, what are the big concerns now about what's going on, and the things that, like, what are the what's if I lose my job and I can't feed my family, right? What if I can't see my family anymore and my friends, the people that I love? What if this never ends? What if I get COVID and have to go to the hospital?
What if I put
Right?
myself out there and get judged and ridiculed? It's
Yes.
a whole spectrum, right, of what ifs.
A whole spectrum of what ifs. And what happens in the what ifs is our cortisol level, right, is raising up. And so that is detrimental to our health. Why? Because in normal fear, and fear is, we need fear in a sense, or we need, because if you're crossing the street and a truck is coming, right, and you look and you're in fear and you're like, and your cortisol level goes up, we need that to get out of the way and move quickly and go into the fight or flight mode, which will send all of your energy to your extremities so you can fight or flee. And fight would be, let's say, as if a saber-toothed tiger many hundreds of years ago were chasing you, and that could be a danger, right? So you have the energy, or you hear about a mother whose child is stuck under a car or something like that. All of a sudden she could lift it. Why? Because the energy goes there. Your hormonal structure for a moment or a couple of moments has you very strong. At the same time, things that are not needed in the body, like digestion, shuts down. A lot of us, when we're in the what if, in that fear mode, emotionally eat, right? And that is the worst time really to be eating, because our digestion is shut down when we're like, and breath is shallow, right? And then people are like, and then I feel sick, and et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of us have digestive problems because of what, not so much of the food we eat, but how we eat, when we eat, and what am I having a hard time digesting in life? Because I work with a lot of women who have digestive problems at this time, from 20 to 65 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So the what ifs, it's so important to pay attention to, is it real? The first thing is the trigger, right? Like Lianne was saying, what's the trigger that takes you out of the moment? And then we go into all the fear states. And the what ifs are designed by all the things that we were taught along the way, our socialization, and all the things that we believed, especially from 0 to 7, when we didn't have the rational mind. We were just a sponge absorbing everything we were taught. Exactly. Everything that we're taught. And also, I just want to say that it's fear is the false evidence appearing real.
False, and that's really happening a lot right now. The false evidence. There's everything we're seeing on media and social media is appearing real, and it's full of fear in every single way you can think. And so that's appearing real, and it's creating huge fear within us and causing us to act irrational, not focus on our health and well-being and on our abundance and our connections and that kind of thing, right? And it starts with, what you're talking about is really, you have to be self-aware. We get into this and we will consume media, we'll consume someone else's opinion or whatever, and we're not aware of it. We're just digesting it, and we move forward and we're acting. So you have to be back, what we're saying, for step back from it. Self-awareness is, what am I feeling in the moment? Your body's your best indicator of that. Do I feel fear? Do I feel anger? Do I feel any of those lower states? Or do I feel peaceful? Okay, I can handle this. And when you're feeling the other, you know that there's an imbalance. And it's time to be able to start to take some of the processes that Sharon was saying in order to alleviate. Oh, okay, am I in the what ifs in the future at that point? Because if you're not self-aware, you can't even get there, right? You can't get to, I'm just going, I'm moving forward, and I'm swept up with the mob into the future.
Yes. And that's why, and Lianne, you always stress this at this time, one of the very important, we'll get into self-care a bit later, but one of the very important, things for self-care is to take time, for contemplation and reflection.
Every day, every day. Yes.
Right, every day. It's for me, when a lot of women I work with say I don't have time, it's like that's what gives me time. That's where, I don't have time not to, because I'm so much more in alignment with the work at hand or the inspired action you were talking about throughout the day, when I take those moments to tune in, right, and contemplate and say, who am I and where am I at today, and what do I need, and what do I best need,
And where do you best serve? And Gandhi was asked the same question. You're holding off the British Army on one hand, and you're helping, to try to keep the peace within India and Pakistan and all that was going on there at the time. How do you have time to meditate 1 hour a day? And then the man said, I don't have time in my life to meditate at all. And Gandhi said to him, well, you should be meditating 2 hours a day then, because exactly what you said, it gives you more time. You work from inspiration rather than just fretting around, running around like a squirrel or a chipmunk.
yes,
So you gives yourself way more time.
yes, rather than moving from the ego, which is so much about, who we were told we should be, how we should act, guilt and all the other things that some of us were brought up with. And you're a bad person if you do this, if you don't do this, if you, what have you. So it gives us opportunity to reflect on that and say, okay, what have I taken on from my ancestral lineage, and start to examine, is it really working for me? And if not, bless it and send it on its way. And as it comes up, it's just old tapes playing itself over and over again. You could be more savvy to when it's there and catch yourself and go, oh yeah, that's my old tape again. Is it serving me? No, not really. Okay, let it go. What serves me? What am I in alignment with? What's my commitment moving forward?
So, it's always what's happening out there is, as you said earlier, is a reflection of what's happening in there. And so just taking that same point what you just said, we know that what's coming up for us needs to be looked at and expressed. But, and what we were told, what was right, what we should be shameful of, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be. And if you act this way, you're not a good person. Have you not heard those same things over the last year really loud on social media? We didn't see that as much before on social media. But if you don't do this, you're a bad person. You're selfish if you do this, or you do it this way. You're not, you're being a sheep, whatever it might be. Those things that we have internalized have come up through us and then through the collective. And the collective reflects it back for us to heal and deal with on an individual basis, which then in turn heals and does the collective. But just pushing always against it and fighting it is not healing it. At least it's being exposed, right?
Yes. And so therefore it's an opportunity, because we're saying, whatever is out there is being exposed, and whatever's in here is being exposed if we're willing to look.
The shadows to look. That's the key.
If we're willing to look at the shadow self, or the parts of us that we've repressed, denied, not allowed to come out. It's too scary. I don't want to look at it, push it back down. And what does that do to our health and well-being? Right? And
courage to look at that.
Sorry?
It takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yes.
And
I highly recommend, yes, that if it's too scary to look at alone, and I understand that, seek the advice of a professional, or find a good friend you feel safe and non-judged with, to sit there and just allow the deeper, darker parts of self or painful wounds from the past to come up, to be observed and to be appreciated, because somehow they served you. It's
Mhm.
all fine. It's all good. It's not bad stuff. It's not, like a lot of people say, oh, I want to get rid of my shit. And it's not shit. It's everything has served you. It's had a place. It's kept you safe. And it's now time, maybe it's not serving you anymore. And so it's time to be looked at, appreciated, loved, send blessings for what it was. And the same with people in your life.
Yes.
Maybe
Mhm.
it's time to release those people because they don't serve you. They don't make you feel well anymore. And it's okay. You could bless them and forgive. Forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you
Mhm.
to move on, right? To be healthy and well. Because if we hold hatred in our heart, it's very heavy. It's
Mhm.
very heavy. So when can we release in love? And we may not be able to send that person love quite yet, but at least if we release them and start to create our own boundaries for things that don't feel well,
Mhm.
right? I don't feel well when I watch the news.
Mhm.
So I don't.
Mhm.
And if my husband's watching the news, I pass by the room and I say, when you're done, let me know and we'll watch a movie together.
Yeah,
Because that's
exactly.
my boundary, because I know I want to participate in things that make me feel healthy and well right now.
Yeah, and we talked about like that, what you're talking about with the relationships in our women's circle. And we use the word bubble was interesting because it sends triggers to some of us as well. 'Cause it's so interesting of what has happened through this whole process. And come back to as above, so below. So what that means is what we can see in our material world is reflected at the higher levels of consciousness, but we don't necessarily see it all the time. So the idea that we keep talking about is being in your bubble. The bubble, the idea about it is that you're safe, you're with people who you feel are not going to pass disease, and there's a safety there. So if you take that to a higher level of consciousness, are you creating bubbles of conscious minded people who
Mm.
are not as an echo chamber that just keeps reverberating what you're thinking and not expansive, but who are really at that higher level to help you open and open and open. And it doesn't mean that they're in the same city or physically with you. It's more that conscious bubble, and that helps to protect you to a certain point as you're moving through these very difficult times, so you don't get pulled down into the morass. And some of your good friends may not be in that bubble right now. Maybe one day they come into it, or your bubble
Yes.
expands or whatever. But just to be conscious of that more spiritual bubble that you're playing in and who's in there. And that, I think, really affects your health and well-being and your conscious evolution as you're going through these really, really wild awakening times.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that we can, I realize through what you're saying that we can recontextualize anything. As
Exactly. I
humans,
like that. Yeah.
we have the ability to do that, because as certain people were using the bubble to me, I realized that was triggering me, because
Me too.
a lot of me is like, if I don't feel free, then I feel constricted, and I don't, I have an attachment to freedom, and I see that. So every time there's something that wants to contain me, I'm like, so I see that part of me, right? And however, when you recontextualized it in the bubble does not have to be confining. And then, as you spoke about it yesterday, I had this vision of, which was so great, of these children's bubbles, that you get, and you blow them, and the bubble gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then sometimes it just pops, because, and do we need a contained bubble?
Mhm.
Right? And sometimes we do, and to feel safe, and sometimes we don't.
Exactly.
And it's also, and nothing is stagnant.
Yes.
It's not like this is the way it is,
Mhm.
and I just really want to reiterate about what is true health. And true health is the ability to move through situations gracefully,
Mhm.
right? Through change. And what we know for sure, well, there's not a lot we could count on, but what we know for sure is that life is always changing. And how are we able to flow in these changes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or do we get stuck on, no, this is the way it is. And then when it's changing, it's like, no, no, I know this. I'm comfortable in this. Let's keep it this way, right? That's where we lose our health. And so it's the ability to adapt and evolve is in our mitochondria. And there's about 200 mitochondria in each of our cells, and they're the powerhouse of our cell. That's what keeps us healthy and have vitality, right? And so let's talk a moment about like what gives us this health and vitality, what keeps our mitochondria in a way of, it keeps it nourished, all our mitochondria. And one of the things is moments of awe.
Mm-hmm.
And moments of awe are those moments, I expressed it yesterday as I remember my son, my little boy, he was 3, and we were taking a walk on the sidewalk. And I was totally in my head about what clients I had later and what I'm making for dinner and blah, blah, blah. And then he goes, Mommy, and he grabs my shirt and I'm like, what? And he goes, look, a little purple flower in the crack in the sidewalk. Look. Right. And he was just like, wow, how does this happen? One little flower and I realized that I was so in my head. Mm-hmm. And he brought me back to that moment, wow, of awe. Mm-hmm. Right. And we pay thousands of dollars for moments of awe. We have these big grandiose structures, like the Rockies that we went to visit, right, this past year. Mm-hmm. And where you're just like, oh, but we can have those moments of awe in everyday life. And when you have those moments like a child, your mitochondria just light up and they're excited and they're rejuvenated. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's one of the things.
Can I connect with that? Yeah, I want to connect with that because if you think about all that Sharon's saying about health, it's very much aligned with what you would say about wealth. And it's interesting, the words, health and wealth, and nothing is by chance, And so what she actually said is the ability to adapt and evolve. Wealth is exactly the same thing. If you think of any business or any type of job or whatever, when you can't adapt, it gets old. Look at Blockbuster. Look at, there's so many examples. You have to be able to adapt. And where this conversation converges is also in awe and wonder. How do you adapt? How do you evolve when you're thinking about your work, attracting abundance and so forth? Is that you have to be in that state of innovation. And innovation comes from states of wonder and awe, of being in peace, being in a consciousness of relax, like we were talking about before, being able to play and be in those states of, can I just imagine what's possible? And when they imagine, you're in that state. Oh yeah, how many of you, I'm sure, at some point in your job or career or your expression of your art or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, this idea, I can't wait and I want to do it. That's a state of wonder. So this great connection between health and wealth is that connection between the quieting, the detaching, the self-awareness, and then being in those states of creativity and innovation, so that in both cases, you can adapt to change constantly. And that's where you constantly revitalize yourself in your body and your health and well-being. And also with the abundance, it keeps flowing. Stops here, it's not working anymore. Oh, what does that mean? How do we adapt? And that's how we create as a species new things. All these things we see, censorship, whatever. Well, new things are being created as a result of that. And that's from that creativity. And then abundance flows from that. It's amazing. I was watching Elon Musk and what he's planned for 2021. It's unfreaking believable. One man, what he's doing, from space to cars to all these things. And he's been working on it, but what's coming? And it's that constant looking at what's possible. Let's be in that imagination. And his whole focus is like, so self-driving cars, for example, his focus is, how can I not only make a car that's better and whatever, but how can I make a car that can also add value to people? So he's made it so that you can rent out your car like an Uber that'll drive to wherever it wants to go. When you're not using it, you're working at home, your car goes out and makes money for you and comes back. Everything he does is about that reciprocity and prosperity.
Beautiful.
So it's just really important that we combine those two ideas of health and wealth. It's not one for the other. And that's where we're seeing right now where, okay, for our health, we have to compensate our wealth and we have to close things down and everything. No, it gives us an opportunity. This is shutting down. How do we adapt and evolve? And how do we pivot and try something new? How is this a time for us to really be innovative and be in those states of awe? And that's where we just feel such great passion and sense of purpose. And then we
Yes.
feel it in our body. And then what does that do
Yes.
to our body, right?
What is that? Yes. So I just want to make a distinction here. I love what you're saying. That's so beautiful. Of like, what is a state of dis-ease as opposed to a state of health, right? You described a lot of health, how we feel healthy. So when we're in a state of dis-ease, right, we have this innate desire to control people, to control our environment. We get into obsessive behaviors that we were taught maybe as children. Our addictions, food, alcohol, drugs, shopping, right? Possibilities are limited, feel limited. We feel like we have less freedom. Our body feels constricted. I could tell right away if, when I am not in the present moment, when I'm fully living my truth, I feel it here. I'm like, in my jaw. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I must have been clenching when I'm in a fear state, right? Whereas health is like more the freedom to explore different possibilities, the freedom to appreciate what we have and focus on what we have, not what we don't have. We're open to all possibilities. We're more optimistic. Our energy is higher. And we have increased spontaneity. We live more in the moment, right? And reduced sensitivities to light, to food, to people, getting agitated all the time. And those will be reduced where we're just like more in the flow, more relaxed, the body feels well. And some of the things to move from the diseased state into the state of health, one of the things that's very helpful is high intensity interval training, which mimics us when we run from danger and then rest, and then run from danger and rest. And 15 minutes of that, I did it on my bicycle this summer, which was like, I went really fast and then I'd rest and then fast. And 15 minutes of that could last 48 hours of low cortisol in your nervous system to calm down. And meditation also works. And Lianne and I, we meditate every day. And that really makes a difference to calm the nervous system. However, something very interesting that I've been reading about and studying about is it works in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily carry you through the day unless you keep that state of calm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? The other thing is eating
if I could add to that, is that the more you do it, the more easy it is to get back into that state of calm.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
So
yes,
you do it every day, and then you get something happens. I can be on a meeting and go, oh, I can. No, it's the self-awareness. You notice, and you're being aware of your body, and the body's being triggered by the emotions and the thoughts. You stop and you notice, and you go, just take a breath, and getting back into that state. But if you don't do it regularly, it's very hard to get there.
Yes, and you're right. It's like going to the gym. When I started, it was like 2 push-ups. And then you continue, then you could do 4 and 6 and 8, and your brain has a reference when you meditate. When you do it every day, your brain when you're in a sticky situation, your brain goes, wait a minute, I know how to do that.
Yeah,
And it can, like you said, get back.
exactly.
And then I just want to talk a moment about food.
Mhm.
And so if you want to be in high vibration, if you want to feel healthy and vital and have energy to do the things that you love to do, it's important to eat high energy, whole, fresh foods,
Mhm.
right? Seasonal foods. And it's not only about what you eat, but what is the state that you're in when you're eating it? Like we talked about before, what is the state you're in when you're grocery shopping? Is it like, oh, I just have to get food on the table, I'm going to throw everything in here? Or is it like, wow, I'm really going to take a moment to be mindful, to be with this food and see what calls me, and the freshness and the wholeness, and what's a live food that I want to feel, to help me feel alive in my body, right? And it's about exercise and movement, because that's how we move the stuck energy,
Mhm.
is through movement and walks in nature where we can breathe. When we're in a state of fear and our cortisol's high, we breathe shallow, and we need to get the breath down. And the best way to do that is by exercise. And the best way to do exercise is be outside and take in the freshness of the air, of the oxygen, and be in the trees and in nature, and let nature heal you because it wants to. So open yourself to the healing powers and the connection of nature, because we are all in this boat together, and we all nourish and heal each other as sentient beings.
Absolutely. And it's so amazing because we come back to wealth is the same thing. When you said, what is disease, which is the opposite of health and wellness, what is poverty? Same definition you used. When you're feeling a sense of poverty, a sense of, in that broader perspective, I don't have money or enough things for myself or friends or connections, or that poverty. What do? We get into control, what you said. We get into obsessiveness. We get into addictions. We feel less freedom when we're in poverty. It's the same thing as disease. And so, and abundance is also very much the same as health. We are more in appreciation. We're more open. We're exploring of opportunities. We're more spontaneous. So why is it that health and wealth are so similar and disease and poverty are so similar? Because it comes down to consciousness. It's a consciousness of abundance that is similar, if not almost the same, as a consciousness of health and wellness. Consciousness of poverty is very similar to the consciousness of disease. And the best thing is that we can choose our consciousness. So we can choose health and abundance and wealth, or we can choose poverty and disease. And so
Yes.
the things that Sharon was just saying, the things to do, connecting with nature, moving, good diet, all very similar. All those are things that help your body be healthy, your emotions and your consciousness to be healthy, and being mindful. That type of the same thing that helps with wealth and abundance. And I would just kind of add that it's also about, and I believe this also helps your health. It's also about when we connect to the divine. So whether you be your guides or your higher self or whatever it is looking for or just allowing the reception of inspiration to come through, ideas, um, things that you're passionate about, and to then move from that perspective, not just to to feel it. Oh, I got this great idea coming through. I want to go and phone my friend and go for a hike, or we want to travel, or we want to start something new. It's getting that inspiration, especially from your higher self, but then also to put it into action just a little bit. It just doesn't take a lot. It doesn't have to be this big complex thing. And then when you move it into action, you start to move it through your body, and you feel it. You feel the joy of it, and you feel the joy of it in service. It's not all about you. It's great, the part of it that's about you, but it's also that you're giving of something to others and helping them evolve as well. And that's where we kind of pull together that health wellness with wealth and abundance, because in that joyful service we feel great, we're in that moment, but we're also bringing, in the service of others, we're also bringing more of it, and we're in appreciation, we're bringing more of that wealth to us. So these things are so connected. They're connected at our consciousness, and as we become aware and we make the subconscious conscious, we can constantly make choices. And through the practices that Sharon and I have talked just a little bit about, those are the things that help each day to get us to bring the unconscious conscious, so that we can repair our emotions, our thoughts, our body, and our poverty. You just see around you what you're expressing in the world is what what you thought about maybe a half a year ago or before is being expressed now. So you have just the same opportunity to change that now, and change the emotions to express something different in the next month, 2 months, and going forward.
Yes, that's so beautiful what you said. And I think it's really important to, when we're envisioning, and you're like the master of envisioning, we need to feel the feelings, right? That we want to have when we're creating this, this great lover or this perfect job, or like, how do we want to feel when we're there, right? And start allowing ourselves to feel those feelings, which increases our health and wellness. The feelings of, like you said, awe and wonderment and health and excitement, that excitement when that person comes into your life, or you get that job or whatever.
Exactly. Right? And that comes back to the original conversation, the first thing you said, and doing that in a detached way. Because when we have to attach, that's how it has to come. We just enjoy of the feeling of the imagination, just that alone, and letting it go, and however it might appear, is really the way that it manifests in a very quick and easy way. Right.
True, because we don't know how. We don't know the how. We know what we want to envision, and it could come in a way that was way beyond our scope of knowing. Way beyond our scope of knowing.
Right. And so could all the chaos that's going on, actually be a process to get peace and unity and living in much more health and wellness and in prosperity for Earth and for society? I really believe it is.
Sure.
Very deeply.
I believe it is
imagine
too.
what the possibility of what that will look like.
Yes. And I think, it for some people, it's been a very challenging year. And I feel that as a visual, it's almost like there's been this great big sore, like an infection, right? And it was popped, and the pus started oozing out of this infection, right? And now what's left is to scrape, because it can only heal if we get into the insides and scrape out everything that has been infected, that isn't working, that its time has come now to heal, right? And so we're doing that work now, so as in a way gross a visual it has its incredible beauty, because we're starting the healing process. And I think I also believe, like some people say, what am I doing here? And I don't want to be here. And it's so hard. But I really believe the people that are here on Earth this time, that are ones that said, me, because we knew there was going to be a time of transformation for eons. And I think a lot of us were like, me, I want to be here. I want to witness. I want to hold space. I want to experience this time. And so you're here, and so make the best of it, right? And know that it's all perfect that you're here at this time. It's not a mistake. And thanks for being here and playing this game with us.
Exactly. And that crisis is always an opportunity for strengthening and evolving. And
Yes.
As you said, a lot of us we all have come here at this time. I really believe the same thing. And we're all experiencing different things. And some of us had some really, huge shocks, whatever, woke us up a little bit earlier to some of what's happening right now. And that allowed us to be kind of, I like the idea of the mothers, the early risers, who get kind of help to prepare, so that when things start to wake up, it's there's a little bit of holding space. And you may be one of those people as well. So you're being called at this time to really hold that light and hold the space as the rest of humanity is waking up. And we just have different timelines, that's all. And we're further waking up and further waking up and further waking up. It's an ongoing kind of wave, so to speak. But if we can kind of
Yes,
that
definitely.
light and not get into and stay that detached, but also be inspired, we'll be able to really help, not rescue, but help the others that are going through some of these really challenging times as well. So
Yes. I like the holding space part, and not everybody may know what that is, but I think it's really just being there with your heart open, holding a loving space, non-judgmental as much as possible, for somebody to just be where they're at and express what they need to express, and not getting attached to it, but just like holding a larger container for that person to just be, whatever that looks like, as long as it I want to say at the same time, because I've worked with hundreds of women over the last 25 years,
Yeah.
as long as it's not infringing on your boundaries.
Exactly.
Nobody needs to be in the face of abuse.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's a whole other, we'll do maybe another video.
But I think that's what you're saying is so important. It's being able to find a way, I won't repeat all that she said, but just to hold that space and to know boundaries and be non-judgment. All those things, if you think about it, is our next evolution. It's not easy to do that. I fall all the time in that process, but just think about us doing that and holding the space and trying not to get triggered, and how hard that is. But then as we do it, we become stronger at that. So in just the holding the space, we are also evolving, learning our own boundaries, learning not to get caught up. So we're evolving as we're holding space for others to evolve as well. So it's always dynamic like that, right?
Yes. And beautiful. And you were sharing before that, this is an opportunity for growth and evolution. And I want to say it's the same about dis-ease, right? And that's what I hold the space for all the women that come to my practice. And in that dis-ease it's not an awful thing. It may feel bad and whatever, but it's usually you've come to the end of, it's not working for you. Something's not working for you anymore. Some way of being or compensation that you've learned maybe in your young years, some way of being in the world isn't working, and it's your way of waking up. Dis-ease is an opportunity for growth and evolution. So if we look at it like, wow, this sore shoulder or this, digestive problem is, and usually the messages are quiet. And if we don't listen, they may get louder and louder till we are stopped and almost forced to look and take time for ourselves. And I've worked with a lot of women that said, being diagnosed with cancer, and I'm just going to use that, but many other things, was the biggest gift that they ever got, because they woke up to something, the way of being that couldn't sustain them anymore, and they needed to reflect, take time for reflection, and shift their way of being in order to live their most fully expressed, most alive and vital and joyful life.
That's perfect. And so beautifully said. And I'll just end the connection between that again, that the disease can be that blessed catalyst for our awakening, and similar, poverty or loss, which I experienced with loss of my husband, loss of a job, loss of this so-called security, can be the most important thing that in your life that you can bless at some point, because it will be the trigger for you to follow your deeper calling, express your greater gifts and light in the world. And the same thing that you hear about cancer, I hear all the time. It was a blessing that I lost that job. and that when I look back, when we're in it, we're in that crisis. But if we can, when we're in the crisis, just know that this may be your greatest opportunity for something of a highest expression in your life coming through you. And just to trust that a little bit, it'll help you get through this period. So maybe we can close with that. I don't know if you have anything else to say, but
yes, I just wanted to say a few self-care points.
Yeah.
I mean, we did go over a lot, but I just wanted to say, you know, reiterate, take those moments of awe. And what I mean is tapping into your soul's expression and what it wants to express next. And number two, make full use of pleasure and enjoyment. So instead of looking at, oh no, now we have a curfew and now I can't see this one and that one, look at, well, with what I have available to me, how can I create my greatest pleasure and enjoyment?
Mhm.
Right? And yesterday I realized I miss dancing. I miss my dance class. So what did I do? I put on my most fun dance music and I danced my heart out. And it was so fun. And I forgot to do that for so long. Right? Number three, create moments of inner peace. 5 minutes. 5 minutes a day where you just quiet the mind. And if you can't do it yourself, turn on, there's hundreds of visualizations, and find a voice that relaxes you on YouTube and go with it for 5 minutes a day. And also for 5 minutes a day, I love to do this. This is fun for me. Look at yourself as a stranger. In other words, not who you think you should be, not myself as a naturopath and a mother and a wife, but just as myself as pure human, just a pure human, right? As if and I am a white canvas and I have no idea who I am, and start creating from there. That's so beautiful. And number five, develop your inner vision. Let go of your thoughts, and there's many usually, and sink into your heart and ask your soul to speak to you. Envision, ask it for, and focus on when you go to your heart. And if you're having a hard time focusing on what is your heart telling you, then think of someone or something that you have such great appreciation for, something that happened to you, and get into that vibe in your heart and start breathing and feeling that beautiful vibe of those beautiful people or the beautiful situation that happened to you. And when you are in those feelings, your cells are just wallowing in them, and then send out that beauty out to the world. And that's how we can make our greatest difference now. You don't have to go out there and protest. You don't have to be on the front lines if Lianne, like Lianne said, it's not calling to you. But we could just send out beauty from our heart as we experience it within our own selves and our own cells and our own soul.
Beautiful. Thank you. Beautifully said. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have some more, dig deeper into some of these things that we brought up today, have different people come on. If you have any ideas you'd like to share of topics or people to interview, we'd be really open to hearing it. In the meantime, have a magical soul adventure, and much love from me, Lianne.
And me, Sharon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.